All right, we should be rolling live here. Welcome to another episode of Accounting Flow. This is the first live episode of Accounting Flow. We did the workflow roast with Kelly Parks last week, which was a ton of fun, bringing in commentary from Facebook groups, from LinkedIn, from Twitter on workflow and processes and trying to figure out how to distill that and just create some action and change in that process. And today, we have the pleasure of talking to the queen of the 25, maybe 15-hour work week, Geraldine Carter. Geraldine, welcome.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of the audience, particularly in the accounting flow circles, the firm ownership circles, know who you are. But for those who don't know who you are, give us the who you are, where you at, and what you do.
So now you know who I am, where I am. Don't be deceived by the map. I'm in Idaho, and I work with accountants and CPAs, single owners, to help them get down to 40 hours, down to 25 hours, down to 15 hours without losing revenue.
Without losing revenue and potentially
Without losing
growing
revenue and
revenue.
without hiring if it's not necessary.
Okay, that's a problem though, because how can you do that without hiring? Don't you need bodies to free you
Yeah.
from the workload?
Yeah. So you don't need bodies to make money. Bodies don't make money. Value makes money.
It
Right.
does.
Also,
That's right.
hours don't make money. P&L reports, month-end close, revenue recognition, none of that stuff makes money. Value makes money. So you got to figure out what your clients value and then figure out how to package that up and sell it to them with a price tag up front so that you're not billing your clients after the fact or by the
Mm.
hour and then chasing them down the road for AR and risking getting stiffed and all the rest. So it's all about figuring out what your clients value.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I want to dig in a little bit more on that as we move forward here. Um, Before we do that, I know the backstory because I listened to your podcast, Business Strategy for CPAs, correct? Um,
Yes.
so I know the backstory of how you got into this. However, I think it would be helpful for the listeners to understand, like, how did you even start to get into this space? And are you an accountant yourself?
Right. Fair question. So I'm not an accountant, not a CPA, never have wanted to be, never will be. Tax gives me hives. I have an engineering degree from Cornell University that I ostensibly never used. I went and traveled the world for 10 years because I wanted to get out of Dodge. And then when I moved back to the US, I co founded a company with a friend. Because I had the engineering background, I fell into the finances role. We were quickly managing $1 million, and my accountant was nowhere to be seen. I couldn't get a hold of her. She was first in, first out, charging $55 an hour. I wanted to know if we had enough money to hire. She's like, good luck, figure it out on your own. I was like, how much are taxes? I think I need to know. And I've been on the receiving end of multiple accountants, bookkeepers, CPAs, where it was just very difficult to get what I needed in order to run to make decisions, have clarity, run my business more effectively. So because I come from the other side of it, having never been an accountant, I can present the perspective of what it might be like for you and your clients, for them working with the accountant, what that might be like
Mm.
and what they're really looking for. And I'm just as I get lost in the account. I shouldn't quite overstate it, but I get lost in the accounting jargon just as quickly as your clients do, right? So one of the
Yeah.
things I help my people do, my clients, is to help them translate accounting jargon into regular English so that most of us
Mm.
can keep up with you guys when you kind of go on a tear about with all the accounting terms.
Yeah. Something that sticks out to me is that you said you got an engineering degree. Naturally, you jumped into an engineering role and then moved to finance?
I'm one of those people who like goes in all kinds of directions. The idea of having a career was never something that I aspired to, right? I just wanted to do interesting things and solve interesting problems.
Yeah.
So when I started coaching and working with business owners, I had a couple of clients who were CPAs, and they kept talking to me about their problems, like why, working 60 hours a week, having a giant pile of AR that they were chasing down, and clients who they, had to chase after, chasing clients for documents. And I was like, why is this happening?
Mm.
Why is it that accountants and CPAs who have business owners for clients, why is it that they themselves struggle?
Hmm.
And that was really the problem that I got interested in, because I was like,
Yeah.
this makes no sense. These are smart people who are great with math, money, and numbers, who touch businesses all day long, and yet they themselves are struggling with business. What's going on here?
Yeah.
So that's when I started digging under the hood.
Hmm. We have a great mutual friend in your home state, Erica Goody, who I believe has presented a phenomenal outline on how to accomplish exactly what we're talking about. Have you worked with her in the past, or are you all just running down kind of similar paths in terms of like who you work with and how she operates?
Yeah. So Erica found me probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was listening to my
Okay.
podcast. And then at some point when she decided she wanted to take on more clients, she reached out and said, "Hey, can you help me shape this so that I do it once, do it right the first time?" So we worked together for maybe 6 months or so and kind of got her pointed in the right direction that she was comfortable with. And then now
Yeah.
you've seen what she's just taken it and run with it. It's really great to see.
Oh, I admire her so much. I think it's so cool. She lives the life that she wants to live. She pours into the things that she loves doing, like her family and her kids. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really, I don't know, it's aspiring. It's really aspiring and inspiring to
Yeah.
see that happen. Now, do you believe? Well, first, let me ask: is there any particular size of firm that you typically work with?
So most of my clients are in the mid to early six figures, 200 to 600,000, because they're small enough that that's a ship you can turn reasonably fast,
Sure.
but they're established enough that they know what they're doing. They've sort of made it out of the danger zone of the first six, getting to 100,000.
Yeah.
So they've established that they can figure it out. They've built their business. And now they tend to have enough raw material that we can take the raw material in terms of their clients, their setup, whatever, and just reshape it, and do that in 4, 8, 12 months. It doesn't have to take an eternity. I
Yeah.
find that clients who are above a million, we still do all the same work, all the concepts apply. It just takes longer because it's a bigger
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah. I was curious because, I started in public accounting like many in the industry, and I worked at a firm that had 150, and when I left there's about 300 working 80-hour busy seasons. That's just part of big firm culture even today. And so I'm wondering, like, at what point does it kind of become inaccessible from a size standpoint, or does it?
Hmm. I think it's more a mentality. I
Mm.
don't think it's as, I haven't had the firms who have 300 employees, I'm assuming you're talking about.
Well,
Yeah.
even at the 25, 40
Yeah.
employee level.
So I don't think it's as much about size as it is mentality.
Mm,
But at that level, you've got more people who you need to get on board, right?
yeah.
And with a single owner at smaller numbers, they make the decisions, they implement the decisions, they push the decisions through the business.
Yeah.
The larger you get, the more you've got to get people all seeing the same stuff and agreeing to the approach and the strategy. And I think that's going to be more challenging than if it's just
Right.
you and you see, value pricing, getting efficient as the obvious path, and you're like, okay, and you that's the beauty of being a single owner and having a small ship, is that you can make
Yeah.
those decisions, decide really quickly, make the changes and see it come around. Whereas, I mean, if it's a big firm, the beauty is that the dollars are big, so if you change things, the impact is really big, but
Right.
it just takes a lot longer.
You brought up value pricing. I want to double click on that and spend some time in that arena because pricing is
Mhm.
one of those things that can be really difficult to nail down as a small and growing firm. I know ourselves, we've been through several iterations of pricing. We're constantly working on it. I had the pleasure of being in San Francisco this week at Gusto Next, talking to other firm owners that have, upwards of 50 to 100 people that are also iterating on pricing every day, it seems like.
Mhm.
What's the journey look like? We've got fixed fee, we've got hourly, we've got value based. How do you start to think about a good relationship between pricing and then firm growth and your time?
Yeah. So I think, first off, pricing doesn't have to be this giant mysterious black box. And I think that our relationship with pricing is like, the first thought people have is I have to figure out the right price. And there is no such thing as the right price. There's no such thing as a fair price. All
Yeah.
pricing is just decisions. You just choose a number that you like for reasons that you like, and you go to the marketplace and you test it.
Mm.
Obviously, we want the price to be higher than the cost, unless you're, selling loss leaders for a strategic reason, but that's not most people.
No.
So then we want the price to be less than the value to the buyer. So we need to understand what the value is to the buyer. And then you want your price to sit nicely in between value to the buyer and cost to you, so that both you as the seller and your buyer, you both are profitable. It's a mutually
Mm.
profitable engagement, because you as the seller, when your price is higher than your cost, that the difference between the two is your profit. But your buyer is profitable in that the value to them exceeds the price, and the difference between the two is the profit to them,
Yeah.
right? So when you go to a Starbucks, and you give them $6 for a latte, or wherever you go for your coffee, and they hand it to you and you give them $6, they say thank you and you say thank you. That's mutual profitability because the value of the latte and that first sip feeling is greater than the $6 that you parted with to get that first sip feeling in the latte. Right?
Yeah.
So you want every single one of your offers, your packages, to be designed so that it is mutually profitable for you, obviously, but also for your buyer. And when it's profitable for your buyer, it makes it really easy for them to buy, and they stop hemming and hawing about the price. So that was kind of a long answer just to set the stage, because until you understand that, you're going to undershoot on pricing and you're going to undercut yourself.
Right. So it's interesting because as a consumer of coffee, I do not value the $6 latte, and my incremental value and joy from a $1.50 gas station just sitting in a pot coffee is just as high as that $6. So I'm going to go to that option every time if it's available.
Yeah.
How do you get to the point where you can, or maybe a better question, what questions are good to ask prospects in order to understand where the value equation lies for them? Because you may have a better understanding than they do in this arena.
Yeah. So you want to ask your buyers, you can ask them the home run question, which is, if we were to work together and we were to hit a home run, hit it in the upper decks, whatever, what would that look like to you? What is it that you really want? And then they will tell you, I want to understand my numbers. I want to have my finger on the pulse. I want to have accurate numbers on time so I can make better decisions. I want to understand how much it costs to hire staff so that I don't get, I'm not paying more than expected. I don't want to get surprised at tax time. All the things. They will tell you what they want and what they value. You can also ask the magic wand question, which is, 3 years from now, if you could have anything you want, what would that be? The beauty of the magic wand question is it leaves behind how we actually get there. It just helps them identify what they want. So you can ask those two questions to help you understand what your prospects want. And you can also, if you're feeling courageous, ask them the train wreck question, which is like, if we worked together and it was a total train wreck, which isn't going to happen, but let's just say, what would that be like? And they'll tell you what their version of a disaster is. Yeah. So with that information, now you can understand, okay, this is really what this client is looking for. And then say, what do I need to design and build such that I can meet what they're looking for? Yeah. And then you can ask yourself, okay, what's that going to cost? And then you put the price somewhere between the value to them and the cost to you.
Do you recommend that firms have some type of a calculator or some type of internal value equation analysis to be able to have a degree of consistency on pricing, or truly try to interpret what that value might be and then have, variable pricing based on the context of the prospect?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is it depends. So, but what does it depend on? So I recommend, if you want to have a calculator to calculate your costs, yes. Trying to develop a calculator for the value it gets a little squishy. Yeah. The thing that helps a lot of my clients is to standardize their pricing. And it becomes much easier to standardize your pricing when your clients look more like each other, which is one of the reasons we head into a niche, so that your clients look like each other. They're in a similar place on their journey. They want similar things, which means your workflows can be set up similarly, and the outcomes are going to be relatively similar. They're not going to be the same, but they're going to be much closer than if you're a generalist with clients all over Kingdom Come. Yeah. And when you do that, then it helps you design packages with perhaps bronze, silver, gold. If you want to go that route, we like it for a few reasons. And that helps you standardize your pricing so that you're not trying to ascertain the value to each individual, because ascertaining the value to each individual is an emotional investment. It takes a lot of time. It's hard to do. Your brain wants to go back to scoping. So what I find working with my clients is that flat rate packages, tiered, is a really helpful place to start, And then if you have add-ons that are hard costs, like the tax return or payroll, those things can just be added on, based on a per
Sure.
person, et cetera, so that you can capture the variability among clients and price accordingly without having to come up with custom pricing every single time.
Right. Okay. I want to get into niching next, but I've got one more question on the pricing side of things. So I'll speak my fears of medallion pricing, and this is coming from a firm that is not segmented and heavily niched in one industry, one size stage. We see a lot across the board: venture capital backed, private equity, family office backed, a variety of industries. We'll say no circumstantially, but we work with a wide variety of clients, and so that pricing is pretty customized per client.
Mhm.
We started with a medallion pricing structure. We had the startup plan, the scale plan, and the full send plan, varying tiers of engagement, communication, and deliverables. And I had a starting at price. Hey, starting at 1500, starting at 2000, starting at 3000. And every conversation I had, a prospect came in with this price anchor in their mind on what to
Mhm.
expect. And it was really
Yeah.
hard for me personally to break the perception of, well, that's not exactly the circumstance here. And we had to really kind of fight an uphill battle on,
Mhm.
well, here are the circumstances that apply to you, and here's the value that
Mhm.
you'd be receiving
Mhm.
relative to what they saw on the website. Any thoughts on that?
Mhm. So it sounds like you're using starting at pricing. They're coming in thinking that they are going to get the starting at price,
Correct.
not the actually, when we look under the hood, we figure out that you need these other things and it's going to be 20% more than the starting at price.
Right.
And they're like, and so their expectation, you've anchored them low. So a way to get out of that is, instead of starting at, to do a range, right? So you
Hmm.
could do a range for each of your bronze, silver, gold, full send, et cetera. Um, and be really, let's see, that's the place that I would start it,
Yeah.
because that way you'll move yourself off the low anchor price.
Yeah.
And if you allow for the higher anchor and say somewhere in between, and then come in somewhere in between, then they know that you haven't maxed out, that you haven't sort of sneakily deceived them
Right.
with your starting at price that was never really going to be a real price anyways. So that's what I would recommend. Do the range and then try and come in somewhere in between so they don't feel like they've been manipulated.
Yeah. It's a good point, and I feel like even in that approach, there still is some degree of price anchoring on the low end, but you at least are able to set a little bit better expectations. And I'm
Yeah.
of the mindset and like studying sales psychology and things of that nature of, in a conversation, I want to set that bar really high to just kind of test them and see where they're at
Mm-hmm.
relative to the expected value. And then once we actually get through scoping, likely come in a little bit lower, and then that psychology, that gap is like, oh well, that's not too bad, we can do this. And so like we play around with it a lot. However, I believe that medallion structure pricing works really well when you're niched, when you have standardized processes and systems
Mm-hmm.
and team members that are doing the same things for clients. You can get really profitable really quickly in that type of model.
I only have 4 prices for my entire business. So the trade-off is maximizing revenue and squeezing every drop of possible revenue out of your pricing, the more custom you go, versus simplicity on the other side. And one of them, custom doesn't scale very easily.
Yeah.
Simplicity scales a lot easier. But like you say, it really helps being inside a niche and having clients who have very similar problems, want a very similar solution, and the process, the fix, is the same, right? So that way it really helps say, this is the price for this kind of problem, for this kind of buyer with this kind of buying power to get this solution. So the other thing is that, like, there's no right way to do your pricing. It's all an experiment.
Yeah.
And every business is different, every accounting practice is different. So for people listening, what I don't want them to take is, I should use X pricing tool. What I'd rather they think is, here's where my buyers are, here's where my business is, what pricing tools make the most sense for me right
Mm.
now in this context, given where I am in my business.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many options. And I think trial and error is good. It's good to
Totally.
test,
Yeah.
and every new
Yep.
prospect that comes in the door is an opportunity to test something new. So let's shift gears a little bit into niching. I had the pleasure and listened to your podcast on a frequent basis, and there was a comment made in one of the recent episodes around. I heard a conversation around an individual who niched into an area that he didn't have any clients in. How could you possibly do that? How can you move your existing practice with a variety of clients and then segment it all into focusing on one niche? How can you even start to think about doing that? It seems impossible.
Yeah. So in that case, you want to make sure that you know that that industry, that niche that you're going into, right? And not just blindly pin the tail on the donkey, just pick a niche. In the case where people have previous business experience or previous family experience, there's a family business around it. So just to be more specific, I work with a lot of clients who have it's been in the family. They have a restaurant or a bar or a farm,
Hmm.
and they've just got farming all around them, or they've had a landscaping business in a previous life. So if you have existing knowledge about a certain industry, then it makes it easier to say, I currently don't have any clients in this industry, but I know these people. I know
Yeah.
what they're like. I know who they are. I know what they're about. I know what their struggles are. And that is what's needed at the end of the day to head in the direction of niching, is to understand who that buyer is. Whether you
Yeah.
have that client or not isn't it, that's not the most important piece.
Yeah.
So really what we focus on, regardless of whether you have 0 clients or 10% of those clients or 50% of those clients on your roster, is how do you deepen your understanding of what their problems are and what they
Yeah.
want instead, and your ability to deliver a solution for
Mm.
them. And if you can do that, then you can go anywhere with any niche.
Yeah. One of the best examples I've seen of this is a firm out of the Northeast called Prefix. A gentleman by the name of Chris Maxey runs that firm, and they serve high-end restaurants. And Prefix is
Yeah.
it's a fixed price menu, and so
Prefix, Roman.
Prefix? Exactly. And so everything from their marketing, their branding, their
Yeah.
firm name, the people they bring in individuals from the hospitality space into their firm that understand the market really well. They know all the systems, and it's beautiful to see. And the benefit for us who have the pleasure of knowing Chris is that when we go visit conferences, he has all the restaurant reservations because his clients are all in that city. But they've done it beautifully well. It's cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, when you work with clients who are all like each other, it makes so many things in your business so much easier in the direction that most accountants and CPAs want. It makes it easier to create value. It makes it easier to understand where that value is in the form of transformations when it comes to money, time, clarity,
Hmm.
stress, negative emotion, whatever. It makes it easier to make the experience for your clients so much better because you're not running all over the place. Work on your systems, dial in the process for onboarding your clients. It makes it easier and faster for them. You
Hmm.
create value in all kinds of ways for your clients when you're niche, and value is what drives prices. So when you niche, you drive value up and you drive prices up. And when you niche, everything gets more systematized, more standardized.
Yeah.
So you get more efficient and it drives your hours down, right? So when you niche, your money goes up and your hours go down, which is what we want.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people think it's scary because they think thoughts like, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. And what about a recession? The thing is that diversification is an investment strategy. It is not a business strategy.
Hmm.
So go over to your investments and put all your eggs in a bunch of different baskets, but come over here to your business and put all your eggs in one basket and focus on a niche and deepen your expertise so that you can increase value. I haven't worked with a client who's niched who has gone back to being a generalist. Nobody does it because they start to feel how much easier it is and more enjoyable it is to run their business when
Yeah.
they're focused.
Yeah. So I'll lean into my own fears again, as I've heard this a lot, and it's something that I struggle with. This is really just a personal coaching session for me, really. I hope other people get
It's
value out of this, but
wise strategy, Roman.
so my fear in niching is boredom. I like
Yeah,
variety. I like
yeah,
being able to tinker with and test and learn about different
yeah,
business models, and I kind of like being that jack of all trades.
Yeah.
mile deep knowledge that
Yeah.
is capable of like hyper process oriented and allow for that focus. But that's a fear of
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah. It makes sense. Because you think that you're going to be bored.
Yeah,
And what happens is that when you get inside a niche, there's still a ton of variety.
true.
So, for example, so I'm super tightly niched, right? Mid six figure single owner CPAs who are working 55 hours a week and want to work 40 hours a week. I mean, that is a tight niche. And all of my clients are so different. They all have very different businesses. And they come with challenges that we've seen before, but it's always a different flavor. So I don't have just as a sample size of one, I do not have a moment of boredom ever
Yeah.
because they are so different with what they have going on, how they've structured their firm, who they want to work with, where they're going, all the things, that there's still plenty of variety.
Hmm.
And the other thing, there's two more things that happen with this boredom piece that I want to address because I think it's really common. And one of them is that the work gets so much more fulfilling, right?
Hmm.
Because you can help people in a scaled way and create digital products, info products or paper books that people can buy at a price point that's accessible to them and get that material and that guidance asynchronously. And it makes it so that I'll tell you what's not boring is getting emails from random strangers saying, Geraldine, thank you so much for writing that book. I'm so
Huh.
glad you did. I wish I'd had it 5 years ago. That does not get boring,
Yeah.
right? So what's interesting, I think, just shifts to a different place.
Hmm.
And the other problem, if you will, with the jack of all trades, and when I was at engineering school, I could not figure out a major. I had there were like 7 engineering majors and I explored 6. And finally I was like, I've got to pick or I'm just going to time out of this university. And so, I did the jack of all trades thing. And the thing is that all of that learning that the time that you spend to learn whatever you need to get up to speed, you take that for one client, it's interesting, but then a new client comes along, they're different. All that time that you invested to learn, you now throw away.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that a person should never be a generalist. What I hope people get is there's just trade-offs. And what we trade off for variety in the form of variety and the sort of dopamine hit of learning new stuff is free time. So you just get to choose, where do I want to point my time? I only have so much in a day or in a lifetime. Do I want to use it to get up to speed on new businesses all the time? Or do I want to direct it at becoming an expert and then have the option to use my free time for whatever I want? And it might still be learning all kinds of new stuff, or it might be doing fun things with your kid or like going backcountry skiing. I don't have
Yeah.
a right or wrong. You decide.
It's so interesting because I 100% agree with all of that. And so I tell myself, okay, I want to build a firm that can scale and we want to bring on more team members. So in my mind, I'm like, well, we can industry specialize and have teams that are attributed to these industries and continue to serve a variety. If individuals on my team want to kind of slip into a vertical, they can do that. However, as we grow, moving towards an 11, 12, 13 person firm, you can feel the challenge of bouncing back and forth between e-commerce and services and SaaS. It's tough.
Yeah, you can feel the temperature going up over here.
Sure. Yeah.
It's so, it's, listen, like I said, I don't have a right or wrong about how people want to design their businesses, but most accountants are working way too many hours for the money that they're making, and they want relief from that. And a way to get relief from that is to focus on either an industry vertical or a subject matter. Focus, focus, focus. Life gets so much easier. Systems get easier. All the things I just said. So yes, but here's the other thing that happens. When you become niche and you focus on a certain kind of client, this other kind of business owner comes to you. And now the discrepancy between the level of expertise that you have in your niche and the level of not expertise, general knowledge you have for that new random person who's just showed up is so big that you're like, dude, I can't help you.
Yeah.
But you can't see that when you're a generalist. And I don't mean to say it in a way that sounds dismissive. When you serve lots of clients and you think, bring it on, I can take it, just give it to me. I got it. I got you. I can do anything. You can't feel the tension
Hmm.
yet. But 2 years from now, when you're in your niche and with deep expertise, you look back and you're like, dude, no, I can't help you. Like, go find a person who specializes in that. And it's
Yeah.
only once you get to that place that you recognize how little expertise you in fact had. And you feel
Right.
bad. You're like, I don't want to help that person because I really don't know what their deal is over there in the e-commerce space.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier to say no.
Yeah.
Um, and David on LinkedIn, who's watching right now, says having a niche is way better. You can still do generalist things if they come your way. It
Yep.
also seems easier for prospects to pick you if you have a niche, if that makes you look different. It keeps you from looking like everyone else that they're considering. And that goes exactly to your point, Geraldine, on like you become an expert. You are the one that they want to work with. So it gives you the ability to accept them if they do fall squarely in the niche that you serve.
Yeah. And niching is a journey, right? So it's not like you just flip the switch and, one day you're a generalist and the next day you're 100% niche. Typically, I see it take 2 years
Mm,
to reshape a client roster from fully generalist to fully niched, and that's totally fine. There's no rush. And as you acquire clients in your niche, you let go of the clients off the bottom of your roster who you think are the least best fitting at that time.
yeah.
So for listeners, I just want them to know that because it feels stressful and anxiety provoking. I just want them to, right? And I've
Yes.
been there too. I've been through it, right? So I remember exactly what it felt like. And just know that it's a journey. And if you just keep focusing on the direction that you're going and that the expertise will come, the connections will come, the community will come, the clients in the niche will come. It all comes if you just keep going in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got 1,000 more questions, but we're going to jump into some live reaction here.
Yeah.
Some commentary that was taken down from either text, Twitter, or Facebook groups. So we're going to get Geraldine's live reaction here to a comment from Tax Twitter. I'm going to share the screen here so we can all see it together, and then I will read it out for those listening. So on Twitter, Howard Knudsen, CPA, says, typing the words, currently I'm not taking new clients to a contact feels so good. Just a few years ago, I took every flaming dumpster that rolled in the front door. No more. Now I pick my dumpster battles judiciously. Geraldine, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, just knowing what I can see here on the surface, I would take that then to the next level and no longer take dumpster battles. Right. So, and I love the sense of humor. Right. And, clients
Yeah.
who show up in February and they're like, hey, can you file my return? And meanwhile, they haven't kept up with their books since for a year. And you're like, ha ha ha, ha, right. Or the ones who show up and they're like, yeah, my books are squeaky clean. And you're like, ha ha ha. And you get under the hood and you're like, yeah, no, this is a mess. So I get that happens. And the more we make progress in our businesses, the more I would say get extra judicious about dumpster battles and start seeking clients who show up like pre-prepared. They show up at already a higher level of quality, if you will, not as a human individual, but perhaps they've made it farther in their business and they had a bookkeeper who was already decent because they went through the rite of passage
Mm,
working with a bookkeeper who didn't know what they were doing, right? So they're just more
yeah.
stages along to make it easier for you to pick them up.
Yep. Love that. Let's avoid the dumpster battles. Let's jump over to a comment on LinkedIn here. So actually, a gentleman that I know quite well, Mr. Jordan Weinstein, he's got a question. He said, my business has developed a natural niche, self-employed owners and solopreneurs. Although it's
Hmm.
not an industry, it's a specific type of business model. Would this
Hmm.
still be considered niching in your mind?
Yeah. So I don't hold, like, I'm not the Oxford Dictionary who holds the official definition of a niche. So, and I think niching I think of it more like a gradient, right? You just get increasingly niched. So do I think I forget how he said it, but solopreneurs, basically small business
Mhm.
owners. I think that's a wonderful place to be. And I would keep going. In fact, I just did a webinar on this the other day. So I think of niching. You can also think of it like a fork, right? It's got 4 tines on it. You pick one tine, and then you realize that that tine is a fork and has 4 more tines on it, and you just keep forking, right? So where this person is right now, I'm going to make some guesses. It doesn't sound to me like white collar stuff, like lawyers, architects, physicians, engineers, people with commas after their names. It also doesn't sound like trades, HVAC, sheetrock painting, plumber, construction, right? That would be another direction to go in. Like if a person is in service-based businesses, you could go in the direction of the white collar types. You could go in the direction of the blue collar types, the trades. You could also go in the direction of the creative types, the web designers, the graphic designers, the content creators, the influencers, etc. So I would take, if this person is in the solopreneur space, I would look inside and see what kind of subgroupings are in here and see which of the subgroupings you naturally gravitate toward. Because I guarantee you there are multiple subgroupings underneath the banner of solopreneur and small business owner.
Yeah. And to your point, though, you said it can take up to 2 years. Once you decide that journey, that's when you start creating your marketing messaging, your outbound communication, your network, and you become known for being the go-to in that space. And so it takes time,
Yeah,
but I like the fork analogy. That's really helpful.
just keep forking.
Keep forking. All right, let's go to another live reaction here. We've got another tax Twitter, a tweet here from Megan Justice. She says, "We need to normalize how much of a toll what we do takes on our bodies, souls, and families. We need to talk about it." I'll go first. "I had a 10-day panic attack towards the end of tax season. I didn't sleep more than a couple of hours at a time for at least 3 days."
Yeah, this is, so I just want to be clear about the words here. The thing that I want to normalize is working 15 hours a week. In this country, we've set the bar at 40. And in the accounting space, they've set the bar at 60 or 80. And it's total lunacy because hours don't make dollars. Value makes dollars. And to me, it's troubling that firms don't appear to grasp this. And they have their staff working 60 to 80 hours a week. And then, a 10-day panic attack. I think because they think that having their staff and their minions work long hours makes more dollars. But that's not how that works. So it's troubling to me that in the accounting space, there seems to still be the predominant thinking is that hours make dollars. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the quality of life thing. Let's normalize on a 15 or 25 hour week. All I have to work is an 8-hour week. I can make my business run on 8 hours a week, right? If the S hits the fan. And to maintain my business, I work 12 hours, usually 20 hours a week because I like it and I like creating stuff. And the take home pay is more than enough.
Yeah.
I think we need to normalize on a new business model where everybody understands that revenue comes from value creation and we learn how to price effectively and we learn how to deliver efficiently. And get off of this, like, you did not sign up for the Marines. Like, your accounting firm should not be SEAL Team 6 training. It's crazy town.
Preach.
And it's like, it's also and like, not only is it crazy town, but it's also just broken thinking. It's fundamentally incorrect business thinking.
Yeah. It's true though. If you've come up in the public accounting ranks, that is an expectation. It is not a deviation from the norm to work those 80-hour weeks. And so even moving into a lot of the legacy approach small firms, they still have that mentality. And it just does not need to be necessary in order to run a profitable firm where everybody has a great, I don't even want to say work-life balance because everything's integrated now, but a great ability to pour into their personal lives and well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think part of it is the American culture, and work hard and you will get there, right? So we sort of get indoctrinated with that belief. And I mean, my experience starting 2 businesses is that it takes hard work. Yeah. It doesn't just show up in your lap.
Yeah.
But that is a phase to get through as you figure it out. And I would offer for the people who are inside firms where the expectation is 80 hours a week. You do not have to be at a firm like that. There are other places. Like, for example, I just had Rebecca Warnick on my podcast, one of my clients in Mastermind, and her entire firm is built on a 25-hour week. Everybody only works a 25-hour week, not just the boss, also the staff. So I think there are a lot of us out here now who are reimagining what it can look like to run a firm that is high revenue, high profit, low hours, and low stress, and that is imminently possible. It's not some magic silver bullet that's only meant for some specially hand-selected people. It can totally be for you if you work on the fundamentals.
Yep, 1000% agree. All right, let's hit one more quote here, and we will wrap after that. This one comes from a gentleman that I have come to know over the last year. That is Mr. Brian Strieg. He says, clients can be sneaky about how they ask you questions to get free answers from you. It's taken a while, but I'm finally training myself to pause and respond with something like, I could get you an answer for that. Would you like me to add this to your engagement?
Yeah. So this is great because I hear a lot of accountants say to me, not in direct words, that they give away so much value for free without getting paid for it, right? And they do it in the form of expertise, and they know so much that it takes 2 seconds flat to call up the entire tax code in their brain, sift through a bunch of options, ask the right questions, and provide a piece of advice that saves $50,000 of unforced tax error. And they do it in no time flat because they're so good at what they do. So I love Brian's, how he says it here, I'm finally training myself to pause and respond. And for everybody, pause and respond and know what your response is going to be. The common one that comes in is quick question, right?
Yes.
Questions are quick by definition. It's the answer that's long. And the answer takes a lot of expertise, and you poured 15 years of studying into calling up an answer in a couple of minutes or a couple hours. So the key is to have a way to respond, which is basically like I have the answer, it'll cost you money, not in those words. A common way to do this for prospects, instead of giving away everything at the outset, giving away all the guidance, all the advice, and taking the low margin monthly work, is to price the strategy work.
Yeah.
And if you can set a fixed price for strategy, call it a strategy session, $495 for an hour-ish. Now when people call you and they say, hey, I want to pick your brain, you're like, great, it's $495. Here's a link to my calendar. It'll take you through the payment. Put time on my calendar. I look forward to talking with you. And that way you put yourself in a position to say, if you want my guidance and expertise, you can have a podcast and come on and get it all for free. I'm totally messing with you. Or you can book time with me. Here's what it looks like. Right. And once you get comfortable taking that stance and protecting your time, it makes a world of difference. And you stop feeling like you're being taken advantage of.
Yeah. One of the best stories that I've heard, a tale, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it was a massive boat, a steam engine that broke down. Have you heard this?
Yeah. Yes. I've heard this.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell it.
Yeah. And so the captain calls up a repairman. Repairman comes up. He takes a look at the engine. About 5 minutes later, he comes out and hands over a bill to the captain after it's fixed for about $1,000. And the captain's like, you were only there for 5 minutes. Like, why am I paying $1,000? He's like, well, $1 for the part, $4 for the time, and then the rest is for the 30 years that it took me to figure out where to find that leak.
Right. To know how to fix it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem, I love it. And the problem is that he didn't provide a price up front to the captain. Right. So as an intermediary step to get the concept around my value is in my expertise, and it took me 30 years to learn how to fix your boat in 10 minutes so you can sail across the ocean and go sell your goods over in, whatever port. I love it as an intermediary step. And the next step is, hey, captain, I'll come over. If you want me to diagnose your ship, it's $500. Right? You go over, walk around the ship, tap, 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 diagnose. Hey, I know where it is. If you want me to fix it, it's $1,000. Now you can make it even better. You can go, if you want me, like, you got to get to New York City, right? Because you're in, I don't know, Dublin. You got to get to New York City. If you want to get there, if you want to leave today, it's $10,000. If you want to leave by the end of the week, it's $5,000. I'm a busy guy. If you were cool leaving in 2 weeks, it's $1,000. Right. So now you don't, the captain doesn't feel like he's over a barrel. You offer him options and you're like, hey, if you want it fast, it's expensive. If you want it slow, it's cheaper. You choose. I don't care.
It's gold. It's gold.
Yeah. It's when you know how to price, it's gold. It totally changes your business.
Yeah.
But you have to know how to think about these things and be on the lookout for how to create value. And I think one of the traps for accountants is that they think that the value comes from work, right? And we came up through the ranks of W-2. We get paid for work. We get paid for services. Everybody's pricing CAS and services. But that's not where the value is. So just like take your focus off the service. The value is in the turnaround time. The value is in the experience. The value is in how can I make this person, how can I keep more money in their pocket more quickly with less headache from them? Right? Keep the service the same, vary the turnaround time, vary the access to you, vary the other intangibles that make the quality of the experience different, better for them.
Yeah.
When you figure out how to do that, that's when your revenue really starts taking off.
Yeah. And I would say alongside of that, learning how to communicate that effectively is going to be one of the most powerful things you can do, because you can get pricing strategy nailed down. Your value pricing can be really squared away, but if you can't communicate it well, it doesn't matter how squared away your pricing is.
Yeah. It's like if a tree falls in the forest, right? So if you can't communicate in simple terms how your services translate to more dollars or more free time or more clarity for your client, they're not going to perceive the value.
Yeah.
So I give my clients, tell them to use the word so that, right? So that you do month-end close. Like, so what about month-end close? So what? Who cares? Like, why not just keep the month-end open? What's the big deal? Right? And when you push against it, it helps where, oh, we do month-end close because blah, 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 because blah, 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 because blah, 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 so that the business owner can understand where their numbers are for the month and make better decisions going forward. So they're more profitable and have more cash flow, et cetera. Right? So you always want to tie it back. And it usually takes 5 steps to tie it over to why the business owner even cares.
Yeah.
So I liken it like, if you get on a plane, you're not buying fractional airline services, right? You're buying the ticket to get somewhere, and you're not even going to Vegas, right? You're going for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. You're not even going for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. You're going with your kid so you can have the moment where they win in overtime, right? And everybody goes bananas, and there's photos everywhere. And like for the rest of your lifetime, you can look at that image and conjure up that feeling, right? You're not buying fractional airline services. You're buying the experience and the memory. But it takes some time to figure out how to connect those dots for your clients. But if you can do that, that is time well spent.
Absolutely. I believe we've tapped into sub 1% of what we would be capable of getting into with you. I know that you have a tremendous amount of resources and tools and tips and things available for firm owners and accountants to glean more information, to work with you, to understand how to achieve this type of outcome for their firms. What are some ways that folks can get a hold of you and some of the resources that you have?
Yeah. So there are probably some folks here watching on LinkedIn, right? So I'm over there. So you can find me. You can also go to my website, geraldinecarter.com. You can find my book at my website. The book is the best place to start because it's 4 hours fluff free. It's only $10. It's like the best money you'll ever spend. And if you want everything in audio form and binge the back catalog, you can find my podcast. It's Business Strategy for CPAs.
It's fantastic. Well, I would have loved to get far more coaching in another hour with you here, but we're going to cut it off here. I am so thankful that you were gracious with your time to come on today. Such a great resource for accountants. I would recommend everybody to go follow Geraldine on LinkedIn. Will you be at any events coming up this year?
I'm taking an event hiatus, but I'll be back on the circuit next year for sure.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So I met you at Bridging the Gap last year, and I'm heading there on Monday, so I'll miss you there.
Oh, say hi to everybody. I am having FOMO.
Yes. Sounds good. Well, Geraldine, thank you so much for the time. Greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful day.